Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. An absolutely dreadfully boring night in the NHL last night. Two games that we won't even bother talking about.
It barely, I don't know. I mean, were the teams trying as hard as they could? I don't know.
Well, it was funny because I heard somebody talking about it this morning on one of the radio shows and said it was almost like the St. Louis Blues. Most of the team was ready to go out on vacation, go to their, to the All-Star break, and they didn't want to get hurt on the last day, and they played that way because it was. Yeah. I mean, I didn't think it was that bad, but it was pretty close.
Yeah.
Elvis Merzlikins looked like George Vezina making a couple of saves, but it was just bad. But anyway, we'll start with the pre-show. I have something, but we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
No, we could do that. We'll do the 80s TV talk. That's fine.
Okay. So last night, I've got one of those, smart TVs like everybody has now. And one of the nice things about it is it connects to a number of free movie channels like Tubi and Flex, and there's other ones. I was flipping through this, just looking to see, most of it was crap. Most of it was not stuff that I would even want to watch, but I flipped on the old Miami Vice. And this is the thing. I watched it sporadically off and on. I wasn't like religious with it, but I did watch it. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll watch 2 or 3 episodes of this. And it ended up being like 6. I ended up fast forwarding through some of it. But I really come to the conclusion, and okay, Edward James Olmos is a really good actor, and he's been a good actor in a number of movies, but like he barely says 3 words in this thing. And his thing was he was like minimalistic. He had the thin tie and the black suit and whatever. Don Johnson, especially Philip Michael Thomas, could be the worst TV actor I've ever seen.
There's a long line.
There are a lot of them, but he was bad.
Yeah.
Mike, Miami Vice was the Florida version of The Love Boat with a cop element. You tuned in for the guest stars.
Well, okay.
If you tuned in at all,
I discovered a few. Okay, because one of my favorite comedies of the 70s, and I think it got into the early 80s, was Barney Miller. I loved Barney.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
They're pretty good. And one of the characters on Barney Miller was a Hispanic cop named Chano, and the actor's name was Gregory Sierra, and he was the they had the black cop,
right?
Had Steve Landesberg,
Wojciechowicz or whatever the guys, Wojciechowicz.
So they had the Polish cop, they had the Jewish cop, they had
everybody covered.
They had Jack Sue, who was the Asian cop.
I remember him. Yeah,
everybody covered. So Gregory Sierra, who was the Hispanic cop, he was the lieutenant on the first 4 episodes of Miami Vice.
Oh.
And they filmed apparently they didn't tell him when they cast him for the show that they were going to be filming on location in Miami all the time.
Oh, so he thought it was going to be in Hollywood.
He thought it was going to be like the internals were going to be in Hollywood, and then they would just do like external. Like Chicago PD is filmed in Los Angeles, but they do.
They send somebody out for shots for a couple weeks, and that's it. Yeah.
So he had them kill the character off in the 4th episode because he didn't want to be in Miami all year.
It's not a bad move just to get killed off that show. I'll give you my top 3 since you brought it up. I would say number 1, Married with Children, brilliant show. I'm not even sure it would be allowed to be shown today on network TV, but it was brilliant. It was just so much fun.
We know All in the Family wouldn't have anymore.
No, number 2 would be Cheers. Cheers was great. Oh, you didn't like Cheers, really?
I liked it, but I liked Frasier more than I liked Cheers.
Frasier was good, but Cheers I thought was better.
Okay. I'm with you, Russ.
Family Ties. Family Ties I was a big fan of.
Alex B. Keaton.
Yeah.
He was a Republican.
Yep.
His parents were deadheads.
Yep. Yeah. Those were the shows. Those were the big ones I lived off. And then I saw some other ones like The Wonder Years I liked. I didn't love it. I liked it. I liked Growing Pains, The Seavers, and The Kuzmans. Of course, I was going to watch that. But, yeah, there were a lot of bad shows. No question.
Yeah. This is Terry.
Sitcom heaven if you love sitcoms.
Yes, Jack Sue when he eats the hashish laden brownies, he's mushy, mushy, mushy.
Yeah, that Barney Miller was kind of like Glengarry Glen Ross. Some of them were too dry for me, but
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, Glenn Ross, it's an F-bomb every other sentence.
yeah, but they never left the room. Like, when did the Barney Miller guys ever leave the?
Right. I see. Well, I mean, All in the Family never left the living room.
No, once in a while they did. Once in a while.
Excuse me, they went to the kitchen.
No. They did some location. I mean, the Honeymooners literally never left.
Oh yeah. Well, it was
Yeah,
live.
that's true,
It was live TV. It was like they have Ralph Cramden on the bus, and you see like the fake stuff in the background. It was like, terrible. Anyway, all right. Do you have anything, Russ?
That's it. Oh, Fish. Yeah, the one thing I would say about Abe Vigoda was when I did a comic with a buddy, Doug Cataldo, and we had I created a character, Throwback, and he was an old guy. He was basically a retired superhero, a Jewish guy. He had the power of guilt. People got a chuckle out of it. We sold some copies, but Abe Vigoda was the guy. We were going to write it into a series, and he lived at least another 10 years after I wrote it, and I still never got it.
I think he lived to like 2015 or something like that.
I know.
And people forget Abe Vigoda was Tessio in The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was a good old actor. I liked him.
Yep. All right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, January 31st, 2024.
I'm Pete Tessier, joining you from an actual balmy Winnipeg. It is 7 degrees for those on the metric scale and 44 for those living in the dark ages.
for us heathens.
Russ going from Sportsology. We're getting 46 in Jersey. Not too bad. I'll take it.
We're having a heat wave. It's 35 degrees in Buffalo, and I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzz.com. Yes, some in the chat are very happy that the Angelos family have sold the Orioles. So it's
not yet. Only 40%. They have to wait for the old man to die, then they get the rest.
Oh, I thought he was dead because I know this.
No, it said when he dies, they get the rest. It's 40%.
Ah, I see. Okay. Well, all right. Well, let's start with this. A couple things. First, the Adam Fantilli injury. Very regrettable for the Blue Jackets, who have just had a horrific year. I mean, we'll just talk about that for a second. First, Merzlikins wants out. David Juracek supposedly wants out, and apparently John Davidson went on Columbus radio and refuted it and was very boisterous in refuting.
Again, let me just tell everybody who can listen within earshot. John Davidson does this all the time. He did it with the Rangers and Niels Lundqvist. Now he's doing it with Juracek. Teams that he is around don't do a great job with handling European players. I'll just say it that way. Yeah. And there is a certain way to do it because, again, if you read like excerpts, and I don't think Juracek is technically asked out. He's just mad that he didn't get any playing time. He had finally bought an apartment in Columbus. They assured him he was going to play, and all of a sudden his minutes are down to 15 minutes, and then he's in Cleveland. And I would be pissed that I was in Cleveland too. So, but the thing is, just the way it went, Juracek made sense because he said, look, Korchinski's getting all these minutes, and all these other guys who are, pretty on the same level as me are getting the minutes, but this team can't give them to me. Why?
On crappy teams.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, Peter, the developmental model there, has to be. I've seen them play a couple times, and of course, typical of Columbus, they seem to play their best against Toronto, and they beat them a couple times.
You have to sort of wonder where the Columbus ownership sits with a constant turnstile of, I wouldn't even call it mediocrity anymore. It's sub-mediocrity.
Yeah, it is.
And it does. The team seems rudderless. They can't sort of figure out what they're building. You take the Patrick Laine problem out of it. That's been a bust. That whole trade has been a bust.
Mm-hmm. Well, they They traded one problem for another because
for another.
Yeah.
And so what's Yarmo doing? I mean, honestly, if I'm the ownership there, I'm taking a good hard look at who's in that whole organizational structure above the coach and is saying, what I want to know, what is your philosophy for a team, not this team, a team? What is your strategy to execute what you believe? And what are the tactics you're going to employ? And I would want that after this season. Like the season's a write-off, so don't worry about it. Like, but that's what I would want going forward, because right now on paper, I don't think there is enough reason to keep anyone around in the Columbus organization above the coach. I think the problems start there. I don't. It doesn't mean that they're not good people. I've always enjoyed John Davidson. Jarmo Kekalainen seems like a decent guy. Like it's just not working.
Well,
And I think they need to make a change. And
nobody's going to argue with you, Pete.
right, I know, and that's that. I mean,
well, Russ, I mean, the thing was going into this season when Jarmo made these moves in the summer, when he traded for Provorov, when he did the sign and trade for Severson. Werenski was coming back. Everybody's like, okay, now they've upgraded the defense. If they get the offense from the guys that they think they're going to get, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they'll be competitive. And that I think all that was predicated on Babcock coming in and whipping and having the whip hand.
And that's what I think the problem is with this season more than anything was the Babcock's coming. We're not looking forward to it. Okay, we got Babcock. The players got him out of there.
I mean, it was a player insurrection, folks.
And then the players never rose to the occasion. Now, you can get rid of the front office. I get it because of the reasons Pete said. But I do think the Babcock effect was way more. This is kind of like, same stuff when Wild left Colorado.
Yeah.
Very similar. Kind of reminds me of that because there's a lot of mental stuff that does go with this. So I don't know. I mean, there's talent in Columbus. They're not devoid of it. They've drafted fairly well. Player development has been pretty good. The Monsters have always been pretty good. So if the problem is they're probably worried you get rid of Jarmo, now all of a sudden, our scouting is going to start slipping again because it used to be worse.
Yeah, but I mean the thing, there are some young players. I mean, they have that Russian line with Chinnikov and the kid who scored the only goal last night of Voronkov.
Right, Voronkov.
So there is some talent, and Fantilli has looked pretty good, but now he's going to be out for 2 months.
Yeah, but he has looked good though. Fantilli's the real deal.
But there also has been instances where we thought there were players. I mean, I'm not going to go back to Pascal Leclerc or things like those.
Don't you dare! He's a buddy now.
But no, I'm seeing the guys that were, drafted high and really didn't have the level of success. I mean, I could go back. Nikolai Zherdev. Let's see. I'm just for shits and giggles here since we're just. I'm just going to go back.
There was another Russian too.
Gilbert Brule.
Brule was injured. Those were bad.
Yeah.
Injuries.
Yeah. Rostislav Klesla.
Klesla was one where he had pretty good talent, just didn't have great talent.
Alexander Picard.
Yeah, that was bad.
Derek Brassard is Brassard's
a good player.
He's a good player. Voracek, they traded, then they got him back, and then injury. Nikolai Filatov.
Filatov was the disaster.
There's the guy.
Disaster. When he was another
Filatov.
one that could not get adjusted to North America at all.
Yeah.
And they tried to do it in all places of Syracuse, right? I think that's where, good luck. Good luck living in Syracuse.
Yeah, ex-favorite Ryan Johansson.
He's fine. I mean, he's not great, but he's pretty good.
Ryan Murray.
Ryan Murray, he was another one with injuries. He still was able to grind out a career, but he had bad injuries.
Yeah, I mean, Alexander Wenberg. I mean, you're getting
good.
No, but okay, and he's a first-round pick, but especially with the guys who they drafted high, like Johansson and Dubois, there was an enigmatic quality to them. None of them turned out like Rick Nash. None of them turned out to be like a franchise cornerstone. True. And they ended up moving away for a variety of reasons.
Well, the biggest reason is Columbus. It's a nice city, but nobody wants to live in it, player-wise, because they don't identify with Columbus. Like,
oh, I mean, it's funny, Peter, that they're overshadowed in Columbus, Ohio, by Ohio State, by a bunch of college football players, and maybe that's
totally.
Yeah, and maybe
like, and Columbus is the weird city because it's not Cleveland, it's not Cincinnati, right? Like, that's where the pro leagues are. The other pro leagues are.
Like, it doesn't feel. It's a nice city. If you go visit, you like it. There's restaurants. The rink's nice, but it doesn't feel like a big NHL city, and that's the problem.
Yeah, but I mean, so now Laine's in the Players Assistance Program. We don't know what exactly it is. I mean, Davidson addressed it just by saying he's having some issues. We don't know if it's substance abuse or
no. We don't know.
Or Laine's post on Instagram kind of made it insinuated that you could draw the natural conclusion would be it was mental health related,
right?
And that could lead to a whole host of things. I mean, let's just, anyone who goes in uses that program, be thankful that you have a program to access and you have support for it, and hopefully you get yourself to the place you need to be.
Night, he went in for OCD. Last I looked, he was the second best goalie in the AHL.
Yeah. But Peter, that moniker in terms of taking a leave of absence because of mental issues was used. And I don't know. I can't say whether Calgary would have to have their head in the sand if they didn't realize that the player who took the indefinite leave of absence for mental issues wasn't one of the names potentially involved in this situation with Hockey Canada. But now, after the fact, they say, well, we didn't know. I'm skeptical there. I'm sorry.
I'm a little biased when it comes to the Flames because I still think Otto kicked it in 1989, but that's a whole other issue. However, the Flames management has some consistent PR challenges. They've done it with their whole arena thing and turning it back on the city over time and turning it, making, the people sort of putting, it's with us or against us. And in 2009, during the H1N1 thing, they had you can go look it up. They used a method to bypass things and they got caught and it turned into a gong show. Oh, by the way, that was when Alberta was pro-vaccine, but that's a whole other thing. It's funny what happens in 11 years. So the issue here is put yourself in any senior leadership position in an organization. Craig Conroy is the GM. Craig Conroy has always been, he's a former player. He was always seen as the most media-friendly guy. Great quote, right? How does Conroy not sit down as a former player and go, hey, Dylan, how can we help you? What's going on? Is there anything we should know about? It's inconceivable to me that somehow they're like, oh yeah, we totally understand. We support you, which they should do.
Right.
But there is no further conversation about it.
Yeah.
And that you didn't,
like don't ask, don't tell thing. That's why.
Yeah. And it's embarrassing to the organization. The Flames have to own this and just say, yeah. And frankly, after the All-Star break, when everyone's back, there should be someone there asking some difficult questions. Well, I don't expect it to happen.
Here's a quote, though, from September 24th, 2022, was on the Daily Hive. Calgary Flames forward Dylan Dubé says he's participating in an investigation, blah, 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 blah. That was September 24th, 2022.
Right. So, you
can't say you don't know.
You had to be an ostrich to not know that he might be implicated. And okay, but the interesting thing here is, and we won't spend the entire show on this. I don't even spend, because we're going to be talking about this off and on forever. But the interesting thing, Emily Kaplan tweeted out something regarding the 5 players, and referred to their situations and how the NHL may address it. And we know that Gary Bettman's probably going to get asked about this. Now, I believe the 4 players that are rumored to be implicated, I won't name them, but we know them. All of them are on the final year or on 1-year contracts. All of them, I believe, are restricted free agents, some with arbitration eligibility. But if they're RFAs, they can be qualified or they can not be qualified.
Right.
So more than likely, what is going to happen with these players is that they will not get qualified. But what she referred to is and mentioned contract termination. And this is where I am not defending these players. I just want to say this. But the thing is, they have not been convicted yet. You cannot go in and terminate a contract for the morals clause in the contracts or moral turpitude if they haven't been convicted. You can't. The PA will go mad. Peter, this will be a PA firestorm if they decided in the middle of the season they're going to terminate 4 contracts because they were accused of something. If they're convicted, fine. But if they're accused of something, I don't know if they can do that.
I agree. Part of things like regulation, compliance, and the law is even if you don't like the process of the law and we don't like that this trial could maybe not happen to 2026,
right?
That's a fault of other things.
Sure.
But the sad truth when it comes to sexual assault and rape is that it literally becomes a finger pointing exercise and who can deliver the most convincing version of their truth.
Correct.
It's not that I wish there was a better way, but that's really what it comes down to without lack of evidence, like literally physical picture evidence and things like that, or recordings and things like that.
Right.
So
we don't know if they did a rape kit or anything like that. Yeah.
I've been involved in a workplace scenario where
rumors that there's an actual witness to it.
Yeah.
All.
And this is going to come out. What businesses do have the ability to do is to say, we are going to exit our employment with you based around these parameters, and that this is going to interfere with your work. This is what you are legally entitled to be paid out. In the NHL, because there's a collective bargaining agreement in a union, you have the ability to exit things, as we saw with Corey Perry, based on behavior. It wasn't criminal, as far as we know, but they got out of the contract.
Right.
There is a mechanism. It's not one that we live in as sort of regular citizens in our own jobs and things, but there's a way to do it. The telling point will be if someone wants to do it, or if they work with the league and between the league and the PA to say, because of the contract status, because of the uncertainty here, how do we navigate this so that if they are deemed innocent and proven innocent in a court, that we are not penalized by having to make a decision around something we can't react. Like, I don't know what they do, right?
I think when people were putting out those tweets, they were getting information from lawyers as to what might happen, right? Mm-hmm. But the league hasn't commented. Yeah. We don't know if they'll even comment on Friday. So assuming that they don't comment on Friday, I think what they are going to do is pay them and let these contracts just waste away as RFAs that don't get qualified. Yeah. Because then they're covered in what Peter's talking about, because I thought about that too.
I think that's what happens.
Yeah, on Monday, the London police are going to release a statement, or they're going to have a press conference, and I would expect after that the 4 players that have NHL contracts will be suspended indefinitely. But where it's if they're paid, then the PA has no issue, and then the contracts at like Alex Formenton, who's the 5th player who's already turned himself in, he was an RFA with the Ottawa Senators, and they simply didn't qualify him, and he was an RFA. So he went to Switzerland. that's what's
But
probably.
they didn't qualify him because he couldn't play hockey, Mike.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't qualify him because he didn't play hockey. They knew what was going on, or they suspected what was going on. Anyway, so we'll touch on this off and on going forward. But
there's going to be more than enough opportunities
Yeah.
to talk about this.
It will be interesting to see how Gary Bettman handles that. It'll be interesting. It'll be appointment television to watch how Gary Bettman addresses the Arizona situation and the whole Salt Lake City thing. And then Kevin Weeks comes out today and says they're breaking ground on a new arena in Atlanta. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, that still doesn't mean anything though, because if that were the case,
That's Atlanta.
yeah. It's two-time failures.
I mean, look, Quebec did that, and they got nothing.
Yeah,
they
got a beautiful building. They got a beautiful building that's a white elephant that nobody's going to play in unless the NHL decides they're going to send a franchise that's in trouble, like Atlanta was to Winnipeg.
I think Kevin's doing somebody a favor because he knows the people who own it, and he probably would like it in Atlanta. And I'm sure there's other people that would too. But I just think that they're not in a rush to do that. They're going to have to dodge the questions about Arizona on Friday.
Yeah.
And in like 2 months, tell us all that they're moving to Salt Lake, which is, I think, what's happening.
Yeah.
And just like anything else, just like what's happened with Winnipeg, nothing was acknowledged. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, they're moving to Winnipeg. And it was like literally within a 24-hour period, Peter. It wasn't like a lot.
The news came on May 30th or May 31st, and no one had confirmed anything yet. Everyone knew something was happening. And it was Stephen Brunt in the Globe and Mail who had the first "it's happening" confirmed, this is going down. And that's when everything kind of took off. At that point, there's a lot of speculation. Everyone in Winnipeg knew someone who had a connection to it. It was pretty funny. Yeah. But don't forget, when the whole nightmare the year before that was happening with Phoenix in 2010, Mark Chipman was sitting in the NHL office.
Yeah.
Like he was sitting there, and 10 minutes, the problem, whatever, I can't even remember what happened, resolved it. And he was there to say, I'm ready. I'm here.
And
it was going to be their team.
Take me, I'm yours.
Well, that's what Salt Lake City just did.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, you know what? What could be worse than what's going on in Arizona right now?
Well, that's the whole thing. I think when they get to the next Board of Governors meeting, they're going to be like, look, they don't have a plot of land. They don't have a plan. Let's just either buy the team back from them or get them to sell to these guys. And that's that.
And Russ, what I've been saying for probably more than a few months is what's going to happen. And I didn't know it was going to be Salt Lake City, but I was saying move them out, sell them to some place that the NHL wants to go. And then when you have your crap together in a couple years and you have a building and you have a plot of land and everything, then we'll expand there. But until you do, go F yourself. You do not belong in this league playing in a college arena with 4,500 seats. It's an embarrassment.
Like I said, I think it's coming to an end. I do want to mention, Mike, this was hot and heavy on Sirius earlier about these rumors for trading Capo Caco.
Oh, yeah.
Here's what I would say about it. The Rangers are not the greatest defensive team, and he's really good on defense, and he's really good at cycling the puck. I don't see a sense for them to trade him unless they're getting like not a superstar. I would say a star player that could be a third line center that has like a year of term. Otherwise, I don't think they're dumping Kakko. I don't think they're at that point yet. And so I just think, Elias Lindholm, I think, would be a disaster in New York. Just trying to get the assets together to get him would be a disaster. I don't think that's happening.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute because I want to go touch on the TSN trade list.
That's fine.
I'm
just saying with Kakko, I don't expect them to be traded, honestly. At the draft's a different story because, right now the Rangers, are a playoff team. And to trade that guy, even though they, after losing Hedl, they still do need some young guys that could actually work the corners. They don't have a lot of guys that do that.
Yeah. Just a couple other things, then we'll get to the trade stuff, the rumor stuff and trade stuff. Patrick Alvin signed to an extension in Vancouver. That follows on the few weeks ago when Rutherford got signed. So everybody's getting locked up there because that team is going great guns, Peter. So I mean, it makes sense. Tockett's only in the second year of his contract, but I wouldn't be surprised that based on the success that they're having right now, he gets extended. Pedersen gets extended. Money all around. Enjoy, folks. But I mean, I hope for that franchise that has suffered for a while that there is an extended success, but everything's gone right for them in terms of Miller's playing fantastic, Pedersen's playing fantastic, Hughes, Demko, they're getting Besser, they're getting, and
Hronek.
And Roenick, he's plus 33 right now. They're Tyler Myers and Ian Cole are playing like it was 6-7 years ago. Yeah. Now the one interesting thing is all of a sudden they traded for Zadorov, and now there are rumors they're going to trade Zadorov.
Yeah. So there's been two conflicting reports on that. One came out that said they were fielding offers. The other came out yesterday late that said they were surprised that people were interested in it. So which is it? So I wonder
what it is. All right. So first thing, Alvin doesn't get signed unless Rutherford gets signed, right? So that's
that bingo.
They wouldn't have extended the one without the other thing happening first. He on his own, they wouldn't have done that. I do think at times Alvin gives his opinion on certain things, and then Rutherford shoots it down. And I think this could be one of them.
So do you think these are trial balloons?
I don't know if they're trial balloons. I just think because I've listened to Alvin do some press conferences, and I feel like when I've heard some of them that maybe it's not with the blessing of Jim Rutherford or he didn't run it by him. He's just doing them. And so I think that's where you might get the two different opinions.
Yeah. But you know what? I've always been a firm believer that the organizations that get themselves into trouble, they don't have that separation of the powers of the GM, because sometimes the GM then becomes a vice president or president of hockey operations. And you need a person, and it's taken a while in Vancouver to get the owner out of the headlines and that stuff. And I think Rutherford's finally done it.
Yeah.
And he's the rep for the owner. Go be a fan, love your team, enjoy success. Let me worry about this for you. Right. And that's probably a good role for Rutherford, but as long as he stays in his lane, because we know Trader Jim.
Yep.
No, but he's still the power broker. Like
he is the power broker. 100% Russ.
Yeah. I just want to answer quickly in the chat. Steve in the chat is asking me about a Leaf goalie prospect, Akhtiamov. He's having a really good year, but interesting, Russ. And I love how these teams in the KHL, it's getting close to the KHL playoffs now. In December, Akhtiamov, who's 22 years old, and the veteran goalie Bilyalov, who's been talked about as somebody that the NHL might go after, but he's like 5'9", so he's a smaller goalie, and that's kept him over there. They were about even in terms of games played. Now, all of a sudden, you look now, and Bilyalov has played 41 games, and they sent Akhtiamov down to the VHL because he wasn't getting enough playing time, and he's a prospect. So they're close to the KHL playoffs, and they're going to play the veteran guy because they want to win.
Right. So, no, that's what they do. They're definitely known for that. I would say the interesting thing in this one is if they don't have him signed, Akhtiamov, to an ELC, and he's on loan.
Signed already.
He is signed. So the fact that he's signed and he is on loan means that, they might be doing this because they know he's going to come over after this season. So that to me is the hint here that, okay, you want to go to the Leafs, that's fine, but you're not playing in the playoffs.
Right. So he signed his ELC, so he'll be over. They have another Russian goalie who is already over playing, I think, in Newfoundland. So, and they've got Hildeby. So they're gonna have 3 young goalies in their system.
Who wants to play in Newfoundland? My God.
No, I know, but that's where the team is. Okay, so
Pete would like it for the ice fishing.
Yeah. The other thing is that CJ Chris Johnson was reporting that Bettman may announce the plans for the Olympics and or the World Cup. I'm sure he's going to talk about.
He's definitely doing the World Cup.
Yeah, he's going to talk about that 4-team tournament, which is, I'm sorry, it's like, would I rather have that than the All-Star game? Sure, because the All-Star game is a piece of crap.
Well, my whole thing is I can't call it best on best because you're missing big parts of Europe there.
Mm-hmm. They should do a Team Europe.
Right.
They should have like Germany and Slovenia and, you know, all these other, but they're not. They're going to have the Swedes, the Finns, the Canadians, and the U.S. Obviously, you're leaving out the Russians.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It'll be fun. The thing with Italy, I don't think they're going to have an answer right now because, like I think
they're playing in Torino. I think they're going to end up playing in the ring.
I don't think they're getting that new rig done in time. I just don't feel like it's happening.
Yeah. All right. So the trade bait list.
Okay.
So Lindholm is number one on the list, obviously, but this is the thing, and I know that Eck just wrote something on this. He's not having a good year. He had 82 points 2 years ago. He had 64 points last year. Calgary wasn't as good. Now remember, he had 84 points with Goudreau and Kachuk as his wingers. So he benefited from that. Still had a good year last year, 22 goals for 64 points. This year, he's got 9 goals in 49 games, and he's probably not going to score 20 unless he gets traded somewhere and gets hot in the second half. The speculation is that they were looking for the typical, home run package, player, prospect, and number one. There's no way that they're getting that for Lindholm now. No way.
Yeah, I agree. I think 3 or 4 teams are going to play chicken with Calgary until the last possible minute. And
there are 5 teams right now that are in the center market, and there are 3 center.
Right, you know what I mean. Teams are going to drop out. They're going to be
I get it, but Peter, it's right now. It's Winnipeg, Vancouver, and Colorado in the West, Boston and New York in the East. All of them need centers, and right now of the UFAs, you've got Lindholm, Monahan, and Henrique. So there's going to be musical chairs, and one of these 3 teams, one of these 5 teams or 2 of these 5 teams are unless a case. Well,
that's why Scott Lawton was mentioned, so you can put another center in there, but he's the last on that list.
Right.
So, what did the top teams? They want a center. But do they need one, or can they go down? Can they go down to a different thing? So now, those are your tier A targets. Those 3 names.
Well, the Rangers need one, Pete. They actually have to get one.
The Jets sort of do too. And the Canucks.
Boston could get away with it because they've gotten away with Coyle and Zach up the middle. Right. But I think, and maybe they could add like a number 3. I know Russ, you mentioned like a Tyler Johnson or something like that.
Yeah. Somebody like that.
They could add some. Like Dallas supposedly is looking for a center, and if the Leafs said they would trade Max Domi back to them, they might be interested because Domi played well for them. But I'm not making up a rumor. That's I'm just saying he played well, and they're interested in bolstering it.
Although now you did just make up a rumor.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's an M5. There you go. But by the way, that was the name of the computer in Star Trek. So,
there you go.
But of those 5 teams, I think the team that needs the number 2 center the most is Colorado, because unless Rantanen plays center, which he's done in the past.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to do that.
If Landeskog comes back, they could do that.
Yeah, but Landeskog's a winger. He's not a center.
Right. Rantanen can play center if Landeskog comes back.
Yeah, true.
And you also got to remember too, what you're really looking for is chemistry.
Yeah.
The formula that you have right now says we need the center part to make the chemistry work. So again, we will focus on the big names, contract status, past success. And out of those ones, I like Lindholm because he can obviously fit in with other players. So, if you're the Jets, you can then have Lindholm feeding Perfetti and Ehlers, right? That's a much different ball game for the Jets. is it going to take a top prospect, a first, and a roster player? Whew. I don't know. Look at what Kevin Hayes was a first, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is the market that much harder than it was then?
Well, wasn't Andrew Kopp a first?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kopp was the first. But those guys, to be fair,
They bring a different aspect.
They brought a more complete game, or at least alleged complete game, than really the guys we're talking about.
Right.
Even Lindholm used to do that.
Lindholm can play 2A. I think he can penalty kill. He's not a defensive.
One way has been bad.
Henrique is a veteran, so if Monahan, I think the only thing you have to worry about with Monahan is durability, but he's been healthy all year. So
neither of them are at the level of Hayes and Kopp. I think we have to be fair about that.
No, but I do think like neither one of like Hayes at the time was a number 2 center. I think the only one that's a number 2 of those the ones that are available right now is Lindholm. I think Henrique is an okay number 2, and I think Monahan's a number 3. But because the market is so, there's lacking unless Philadelphia decides they're going to trade Morgan Frost or Lawton, unless Buffalo decides they're going to get in onto this and trade Casey Middlestat, unless there's
listen, but I don't think there's great deals out there for those kinds of guys. I'm sure Frost is going to get thrown out there because we've heard that he might be already. But here's the thing with Calgary. End of the day, they need to make one of those deals quickly because you can't deal 3 guys in that short period of time, and they've got 3 that have to go.
Well, okay,
they've got to get on the stick now and get it done.
So following that, there is rumors of it's Tanev, Hannafin, and Lindholm. I don't get this Tanev to Ottawa stuff that is being reported out there because first of all, Tanev has a no trade list. I seriously doubt he's going to go to the worst team in the league unless they're going to sign him to an extension right now. Maybe they're willing to do that. I mean, if they're in contact with his agent and they'll say, we'll sign you to a 3-year extension for $5 million right this second. Okay. I accept the trade. If not, why would he go? He could go to Vancouver, who's a contender. They're supposedly interested in him. Toronto is where he's from. There's a lot of stuff about him wanting to play for Toronto. He could get traded to a contender and win a Stanley.
They'll pay him the most, Mike.
Well, I'm talking about just as a pure rental.
No, but it won't be a pure rental. That's the whole thing. It'll be a rental and an extension.
Right. If with Ottawa, it would be a rental and extension.
Right.
They'd have to.
That's what I'm saying. So maybe they're willing to pay him the most. Look, I know there are these grandiose plans that Ottawa's going to get this tremendous coach and it's all going to turn around. I mean, look, there's always a possibility of that, but maybe that's what Tanev is believing too. Maybe that's what his people believe because, Ottawa's going to have to hire a new coach. We'll see who they get, but they definitely are not like bereft of talent, but they definitely need some massaging of that lineup and bring in some more talent.
They keep saying they want pros. They want guys who are, who provide a good example for the players who are there. And I get that. I mean, I thought that's what Giroux was.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not enough.
Well, Giroux's had a good effect, but again, I brought this up on Sirius the other day, and I'll bring it up again. It's hard for teams to overcome the turmoil that Ottawa was going through this year. First, you had Dorian. First, you had Dorian. Then you had, the GM situation. Then you had the Pinto situation, and that's a lot for a team to go through. And then they weren't even playing games, right? And so then you knew they were going to have a terrible schedule trying to make up these games. It was never, a great team to overcome all that.
Now, okay, so Tanev is number 2 on the TSN list. Monahan is number 3. Sean Walker is number 4. And somebody was mentioning, I heard the Leafs. Okay, the Leafs are not. First of all, the Leafs are not trading for Sean Walker because I think the price on Sean Walker is probably around a second round.
I think it's second. Yeah.
And the Leafs don't have a second round pick until 2027, so that's not happening. I
think they trade somebody on their roster to somebody for a second.
Yeah,
and trade for Walker.
Right, but this is the thing, and Russ, you know this. Walker is the wrong type of defenseman that for what Toronto was looking for. They're looking for somebody who's more defensively responsible.
Well, he's actually played great defense this year, Mike. That's the shock about
Right.
Sean Walker is he's when he is pinched, he actually has created offensively, but he's played good defense this year.
Yeah.
And he is fast. Like there is an asset there with his speed, but he is actually this is the best you'll ever see Sean Walker. There's no question.
Yeah, now here's where Russ will roll his eyes. Number 5 on the list is Vladimir Tarasenko. And I said,
I'm definitely gonna roll my eyes because I think teams are on to him. I think at this point,
I think somebody Russ, I think someone's gonna bite. I think he's Peter.
You know what? Tarasenko is going to be the guy who falls in that 2 to 3 o'clock zone on trade deadline day. So that's where he's going to go. And it'll be a weird kind of conditional second in 2027 or something. It'll just be bizarre.
You know what he jammed. Oh wait, look, it's Tarasenko's name.
You know what he is? He's Marian Gaborik when he went from Columbus to LA. He was like, okay, that's not going to work. He's past there. He's not good enough. And then he helped them win a Stanley Cup.
I don't think Gaborik was ever in that same situation. I think people understood when he left New York, Torts had a lot to do with it. And then I feel like they still knew Gaborik had a lot of talent. I don't know. Does anybody think Tarasenko's got a lot of talent anymore?
Yeah, Russ, I do think
he's got such a low. You're used to looking at such low numbers for playoff production, and you think his production is good. And it wasn't.
Anybody who didn't work with the Rangers, you just don't think they're going to work anywhere.
Look at his production the last couple of years. It's not good.
He's got 32 points for a bad team in 44 games. He's got. I'm not saying.
How much is he going to cost another team?
I'm not saying he's a $5 million player, which is what Ottawa paid him. But Ottawa's going to retain 50%. And if at $2.5 million, if you need a scoring winger, you could do a lot worse than Vladimir Tarasenko.
No, you can't because for 2.5 at the deadline, now I got to give up at a first or a really good prospect to get this guy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this guy's fitting in. He's not great at fitting in with teams. Okay. You know that.
Well, okay, everybody remember this because I said whoever trades for Tarasenko.
You might be right. There's a lot of bad teams out there that'll do this. But I'm just saying Tarasenko would be at the very bottom of my list. I don't know how Peter feels, but
this is one of those things where if he's on your radar, you should have a pro scout watching him for a month.
Yep.
Like seeing what he's doing before the bus leaves the hotel, you understanding everything.
Yeah.
Going forensic because that guy he was all world talent. And did he just get old? What happened? Injury? Yes. But what's going on there? And you got to figure out, you got to look at all the game tape, understand how did he get his points? What was he doing when it happened? What was he doing prior to the point? How did that scoring opportunity and event arise? Where was he on the ice? Understand everything about him because that's the kind of risk factor you're going to get into. And if no one's taken him, I wouldn't be surprised. Right now, it's Steos, right? He's the GM in Ottawa. I'm driving. Yeah. He's hoping to dump the whole salary.
Right.
That's hope, right? But he's not going to give that 50% or 20% or whatever it is until he absolutely has to get rid of him.
Right.
So, if someone gets out on Tarasenko early, I'll be really surprised. But Russ, there's always someone who chases hope.
I think it's a late move. I'm not saying I think it's going to be probably with a team like the Rangers last year when they traded for him, a team that is strong and can deal with. He's enigmatic, fine. A team like Dallas. If Dallas needs a scoring winger, and they've got Sagan, and they've got Ben, and they've got Robertson, and
I would rather bring up Maverick Bourque. I'll roll the dice on him. Look, here's Mike.
Maybe they don't think Maverick Bourque is ready if they do that. That's what I'm saying.
You're telling me that Tarasenko, it's because he's on a bad team. then how the hell does Claude Giroux have 42 points on that same bad team? If Tarasenko were playing at a certain level, he would still have the points.
Tarasenko's playing on the second line. I think Giroux is playing with Brady Tkachuk.
Okay, but even if he wasn't, you don't think Giroux would have the points? Of course he would. This is again, Drake Batherson has 19 points in 27 games. He's got a better point per game average than Tarasenko. Tarasenko's just not that good.
Okay.
So here's an interesting argument. I just read it on talking about Monahan.
Mm-hmm.
Monahan's been a very good player on a bad team, getting number 1 PP minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now you bring him in, and this goes to your point of, and you could apply the same thing to Tarasenko, the same logic. Now you bring him in. Is he in the exact same place where he's getting those points on the new team?
Right.
No.
Yeah,
Or if you're someone like the Jets, where your power play it's abysmal, you need a Monahan to help change something, right?
Right. I mean, I'll use the argument that Russ used last year, and I thought I heeded it and thought it was right. When they were going after Kane, the benefit of Kane is to have him on the first power play, and the Rangers didn't need him on the first power play. They had Kreider, they had Zibanejad, they had Fox. They had, they were loaded on the first power, and they put Kane on that first power play, and it didn't work. But with Tarasenko in a right situation with a team that is looking for a power play forward, a guy who can do the one timer from the half wall, he might be the right thing. I mean, it's not going to be a perfect fit for everybody, but there might be a team out there that is looking for that guy, and they're not going to be paying through the nose. I don't think it's going to be a first round pick. It's probably going to be a second or third, or they have to pay a conditional one if they're retaining half the salary. But I do think, there is going to be some interest there, just like Anthony. Okay. Anthony Duclair is 7th on the list. I don't know, Russ. Who would you rather have? You'd rather have Duclair, right?
I'd rather have Duclair because if nothing else, he causes problems with speed. And if I could put him on a speed line in the playoffs, you never know what that can do.
Now, Jake Allen is 6th. He's got another year on that contract. It's got to be a team that's looking for a longer-term solution in goal, maybe LA. Although, and I've not heard.
I think LA's done. If I were them, I just think, and I'm not the only one. I heard Marty Baron say the same thing on Sirius today, that he thinks they're done too.
Well, when you lose 13 of 15, it's tough to have confidence in what they're doing. So I get that. Here's the one. Okay, I don't know about this one because his name has been out there in terms of being traded for probably 2 months now, and that's Kuzmenko from the.
Nobody's touching Kuzmenko.
Oh, the rumor is Chicago will, because Chicago.
Right. Yes. Right. Nobody contending. With
Chicago is a dumping ground. It's like where the mob dumps bodies in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, and
the problem is, again, Vancouver better watch it. They're not built for long-term first place success. And if they start hemorrhaging assets again to get out of bad contracts, Rutherford's going to be out of there in 2.5 years when they start running dry again on prospects if they act like that.
Okay, I'm going to – okay.
Any thoughts?
I don't disagree, but if there's a year they got to take a shot, this is probably it. But it's got to be a smart shot.
Right.
Get depth, get a next man up kind of thing in your plan for when an injury happens or the unexpected. Don't try to change the roster and what's working. That's the mistake that we get. So you go back to Tarasenko, you go back to things. Oh, well, we get him in and we put him in this position, it's going to ignite us.
Yeah. That's
not the way to think.
Sometimes the right move is just the guy who just plugs in and fits. I mean, honestly, even though it was a big move in terms of a high draft pick, the Ryan O'Reilly move in Toronto last year worked. He, good team guy, played center, could play wing. They played him on the second line. They played him on the third line. He was good on faceoffs. He helped them in the playoffs. It was a fit. It was a good fit. But you bring in somebody splashy into a situation where a team is riding high, and then that's sort of like a cannonball breaking the wave. It's like
if I'm Vancouver, I don't know what they do before games. Like the Flyers do that. They have the gong that people bang. Somebody's got the horn, right? They got the horn in Vegas. I don't know what they do in Vancouver, but before their playoff games, don't invite Kirk McLean. That's just my personal recommendation.
Jesus. All right, I'm going to throw out a name here, and I want you guys to guess of the team that I am thinking this guy is getting traded to.
Okay.
The name is Patrick Maroon. Vegas, Russ?
St. Louis Blues.
That's a good one, but I think it's Tampa Bay. I think he's going to go back. He's only making $800,000, and Breeze Walk, and their problem is their bottom six is horrid.
True,
horrid. That's why I thought there was a chance that they would go after Corey Perry, but they
he did win a cup in St. Louis though.
He won a cup in St. Louis. He won a cup in Tampa. So but no, that I could just
I can see it for both though. I could.
Yep. Okay, we'll end it there. I'm not sure. We may be back on Friday. We'll let everybody know on social media, but we will let everybody know. But for Pete Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.